It is the 41st millennium, a grimdark future of only war, as humanity suffers to the laughter of thirsting gods. Perturabo, the Lord of Iron, demon prince of chaos, a warped creature of twisted machine and hate that has re-emerged into the material verse. Perturabo leads his infinite citadel, his grinding, bloody conquest towards terror and the rotting corpse that sits upon its golden throne. The Lord of Iron has become a creature of nightmare, too terrible for the mortal mind to comprehend, a path that began in the fires of the Horus heresy. It is time to ask ourselves, is Perturabo justified in his betrayal of the Emperor and the Imperium? Is he justified in his transformation into a creature of bitterness, machine and spite? My name is Hal the Amber King, and together let us investigate the story of Perturabo, and let you decide, is Perturabo's demonhood justified?
I see a path now, a path to greatness, no man's slave, no god's puppet. It will require time. It will require sacrifice.
From iron cometh strength. From strength cometh will. From will cometh faith. From faith cometh honor. From honor cometh iron. This is the unbreakable litany, and may it forever be so. A child not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. The Lord of Iron, the Hammer of Olympia, Lord of the 4th Legion, Perturabo, a creature of the warp, with the blood of 1,000 worlds stain his hands. Yet this creature has been a man, a demigod son of the Emperor of mankind, whose loyalty was as unbendable as his will. How does a man who could endure any hardship, a man that could tear down any wall for mankind's golden age, become a creature set upon his destruction? Where does this path begin? It begins with a child, awakening on a mountain's edge, shards of metal and glass around him in the snow, as bitter winds batter his form and fill his lungs with his first taste of air. There was a truth he felt emerging in his mind, one that would define him in the centuries to come. Someone had abandoned him on this rock face and left him to die. He knew this with a certainty that was unshakable as it was unknown. Why would anyone leave a youth with no memory to die? What purpose would it serve? The child's first thought, abandonment, an interpretation that concluded the deliberate, and someone was to blame. The boy stood, hauling his numbing form down the mountain summit. The days would pass into weeks, as a growing sense of understanding blossomed, alongside the feeling of the hairs at the back of his neck standing up. Into the specks he knew were called stars, he peered deeper, staring into a vortex of light and colour, a maelstrom that no matter day or night he could sense, feeling the sensation of someone or something watching him. Weeks had passed until he had seen them. With the blood of monstrous creatures still staining his hands, he finally saw beings that resembled him, yet instinct told him he was so much more. He was surrounded by men in red-crested helms. One offered an armoured gauntlet, and lifted the child with the demeanour of a man. They aimed objects the child knew in his mind were projectile weapons. From the mountain's height, the boy pointed to a structure he knew were made by hands such as his, the hands of mankind. The red-crested warriors asked who he was. What was his name? A number came to the mind of the child, but he knew he was so much more than just this number. He had a name, and now that it had been asked of him, he found he knew it. I am Perturabo. Once again he pointed to the structure in the distance, and asked who was its master. Damikos was its master, the tyrant of Lokos, the red-crested warriors had said, the weapons in their hands not lowering. the sense of unease in this child's presence not abating. "Take me to Damokos," the child Perturabo had commanded. Before marble walls had soared into the skies, Perturabo entered his first human civilization. He observed in awe the carved bronze-decorated columns of the city-state of Lokos, as ranks of gold and white-armored men lined a marble hall, escorting the child to his destiny.
You mean to test me?
"If you are agreeable to the proposition," said Damokos.
What if I fail?
"You will not be harmed," replied Damokos. "I am sure such a fine example of manhood could be found a role here of some sort. You will be cared for."
And what if I pass?
said Perturabo suspiciously. The king smiled. "Then we shall see. Pass or fail, in either case I promise no harm will come to you. What manner of king would I be to slay a living legend, one that brings joy to my people? Tyranny is an art. You will not find me an artless man." He had nothing to lose, and he was curious to see what the test would be. A barrel of iron rods was set beside Perturabo, and a wooden carryall full of tools. Everyone in the hall looked at him expectantly. Perturabo looked at the king. "Begin," said the tyrant. Perturabo let his instinct guide him. He decided then and there to make a sword. He took up a bundle of iron rods and sorted them, testing their weight and their tone by striking them upon the anvil. He listened carefully to each. He had no idea which ones to choose, so selected those that felt right. He thrust them deep into the fire without gloves, his hands coming so close to the flames that the king's courtiers gasped. But Perturabo did not fear the flames, and did not flinch from them, instead continuing to hold the rods as they took on the heat of the furnace.
"Bellows,"
he said, releasing the metal. The eunuchs recognized the power in him, and obeyed instantly, pumping long, curved bellow irons until the fire roared and the metal turned white. To draw out the metal, Perturabo put on a thick hide glove, size for an adult but already tight on his fist. He did not use the pliers offered to him, but dragged out the metal in his gloved hand and commenced beating upon it with a smith's hammer. He worked slowly, methodically. The iron was unyielding. It required the application of heat to change it. Only in this way could its uncompromising nature be molded into a weapon. Damokos watched, fascinated. Perturabo wiped the sweat from his brow and held up the weapon by its tang. Damokos gestured that Matildes take it. The blade was plain and unadorned, lacking fitments and yet to be ground to an edge. But it was clear that it was fit for its purpose. "It is perfect," said Miltiades in amazement. He weighed its balance in his hand, sighting down the edge. "Perfect." He held it up to his lord. "This was done with just a hammer." Whispers went around the great hall.
"It is not finished. It needs sharpening. No weapon is complete until it is honed,"
said Perturabo. Another thing he knew without knowing, as innate to him as his sense for iron. "Indeed," said Damokos thoughtfully. "You may hone it later in my engineering workshops."
"I thank you. It would."
Perturabo thought for a moment, unsure how to describe the emotion he felt at the thought of leaving the blade dull.
"Displease me if I were not to complete my task."
"Commendable, young man." A calculating look came into Damokos's eye. It saw all of the value of Perturabo, but none of his worth. The youth, though new to the world, was sure of that. "Perhaps you might wish to work here, and apprentice to our metalworkers. It would be a fine life."
"Perhaps,"
replied the boy.
"but I feel this working of iron is not my true strength."
Then what is? Asked Damokos. Perturabo looked around. He pointed to the gun at the Soboptio's waist. A complicated device of bulbous protrusions, and flanned edges built around a glass flask crackling with captive lightning.
That, I would learn its workings. And this,
He gestured at the high roof.
I wish to build, I think. The stone speaks to me as much as the iron.
Damokos clapped his hands in delight. Do you still doubt, Suboptimo? The boy is he, the Wanderer. Well. Anoikai's hand is in this. It is sure. He is a gift from the gods.
Who is Anoinkai?
Asked the boy. The goddess of fate, said Miltiades. How can he be one of the gods if he does not know that? The Suboptimo's hand rested on his sword hilt warily.
What are gods?
Asked Perturabo. The term was alien to his ears. The beings above us, who watch from the summit of Mount Telephus and judge all men. These are their likenesses, said Damokos, gesturing at the sculptures either side of him. Gozek and Caliphus, the twin tyrants of the gods.
Has anyone ever seen these beings?
A shaven-headed man, perspiring in ornate robe, stepped forward. A priest, thought Perturabo contemptuously. He recognized his sword instinctively, and just as instinctively, did not trust them. They are removed from us by their own design, said the priest. The divine and the mundane are separate, overlapping spheres that are distinct, but which influence each other. Perturabo sneered.
A world you cannot see. The existence of such things is illogical. All mortal experience can be encompassed by the rational laws of reality.
He paused. How could he prove what he had just said? Nevertheless, he felt it deeply, utterly, as an unshakable conviction. Blasphemy, said the priest.
Make-believe. A modesty curtained for ignorance. I do not like these gods. They are the enemies of reason.
Then, if not from the gods, where are you from? Asked Damokos.
I do not know.
He paused again. A fierce yearning tightened his throat.
I want to know.
Then stay here with me, said Damokos. You shall learn all we can teach you. I will help you discover your place of origin, but you must serve our city in return.
In battle?
Maybe.
What of peace?
You made a sword. You could have made a plough.
What of peace?
Perturabo repeated. A hot feeling stirred in him. He did not like it. Damokos smiled unconvincingly. There will be peace. No one attacks Lokos. They see the walls of our city, and they give up in despair and retreat. Lokos has not been successfully sieged in 600 years. War is necessary, boy, but never desirable. There is always time for peace. The boy's cold expression froze the tyrant's mirth. Damokos' smile set on his face. Liar, the boy's expression said.
What use are walls against someone who refuses to give up?
I have not yet met such a person, said the tyrant. But in his heart he knew that very person was standing in front of him, dripping with sweat from the heat of the forge. If you are to serve me, I must know you. Tell me your name.
It is Perturabo.
That is not a name of Lokos. What does it mean? Asked the king.
I do not know. Only that it is my name, and was always intended to be so. As to its meaning, I will find out.
Perhaps it was a novel concept to Perturabo, for within the eyes of the overweight tyrant of Lokos, he saw the infinite capacity to lie. and the man who offered him a place in his hold. A man who simply offered tools, knowledge, and resources. It was from the kindness in his heart. Perhaps in truth, Perturabo was sure this Damokos possessed none. As if on instinct, Perturabo had forged a sword. Drawing from the innate knowledge he felt locked within his own mind, the thought occurred to him that perhaps he too was iron, a raw material whose destiny was forging into a weapon. But had his own creator abandoned this iron before placing it into the forge's heat? Was the iron of Perturabo unclean, melded with impurities that made him unfit? An iron abandoned on a mountain summit that saw a maelstrom star watching his every move. A void of guidance rested in the heart of the genius child, perhaps a void seen by a tyrant's ambition. Nature or nurture? Whose power was more dominant over the young Perturabo, growing within the court of the tyrant of Lokos? Within his own mind, understanding of technology and science was coded into the very being called Perturabo. He had the creator, he was sure. His genius, his strength and rate of growth pointed to intention. Cartographic maps, architectural designs, weapon schematics flowed from the tyrant's miracle child. But to Perturabo, his creator's touch was most evident in the cold logic he wrapped around himself like armor, a point of contention and abrasion for the people of Olympia. From across the mountain lands and rival city-states, they had come in their dozens, then hundreds, the curious crowds hoping to catch a glimpse of the genius child, whose works were transforming Lokos. With the rival tyrant Adolphus at his side, Damokos hid his delight, as after each feat of art, strength, and combat, his precious prize, Perturabo proved his superiority. One by one, warriors and scholars lay in defeat, until once more a priest spoke before the court of Lokos. Perturabo wondered if the instinct of repulsion was a learned behavior, or one built within himself by the creator he longed to see. "You are one of the prisoners still within the cave," said Perturabo. Gripped with excitement, the man rushes back into the cave to tell his fellows of the truth of the world. But his eyes are now adapted to the day, and he can no longer see the shadows that entrance his fellows still. They, lacking any other point of reference, regard his revelations of the truth as madness, and his blindness to their shadows as an affliction. Thus, they deem the outside world harmful. They kill the man to stop his madness, and they resolve to destroy any other person that would remove them from the cave. Perturabo's face darkened. "And so you priests inflict death on those who disagree with you, in order to preserve your comforting ignorance." Gasps ran through the crowd, some of them appreciative, others horrified. "You arrogant youth," said the priest. "I see what you are doing. You want to turn the city against the gods by setting yourself as the man who knows the truth." "You are mistaken. I am not the man. I am the sun," said Perturabo. "I will burn your eyes until you see. I am the truth." His logic was iron, as cold as the metal itself. These so-called gods, ones he had never seen, their actions attributed to them by those Perturabo saw as ignorant. Perhaps within his core he knew he was not the man in the allegory of the cave. It was not his role to seek the wisdom of the sun and bring it to mankind. He was the sun. It was he, whose mind was filled with technology and science. It would be his knowledge, his very existence, that would illuminate the ignorant, and those that sought to keep mankind afraid and ignorant. What of peace, the young child had said to the tyrant? What of the peace he was created for? An age of enlightenment. Nature or nurture? Whose power was more dominant? As the years began to pass, the realities of Olympian High Court began to infect him. Ascending up a tower's staircase, the tyrant Damokos approached the workshop of the being he called Son. The calls for Perturabo to join him, and his adoptive siblings rejected. The offer of a new Olympian name on his ceremony of manhood left in ashes. "Do you expect gratitude? For the endless tests," said Perturabo. "For the snivelling intellectuals who come to denounce me as a fraud. For the members of your court who would see me dead. These are unpleasantnesses that any highborn of Olympia must suffer. It is the price of power." "When will you see, my lord, I am not like you?" Perturabo's anger was always sudden, his shouts deafening. "I care for all men," said Perturabo quietly. "Why do you think I designed these things? For myself? You call them follies, but they are to make the lives of people better. All through my life I have made this plain to you. You look at me and see an asset for war, not a son or weapon. All sons must serve. This is a warlike place. The League plots against us. Every venture I have undertaken, you have sought to divert towards war, always towards war. My interest in languages you harness for breaking the codes of your enemies. My architecture is fit only for the construction of towers and walls. My mathematics given over to the fashioning of tools of death." Almost a decade ago, it had been mere days after the welcoming of this genius child to court, that the first assassination attempt had been made. With hearing that far exceeded a mortal man, Perturabo heard the plotting, the whispers in a web of lies that surrounded him. A Game of Thrones young Perturabo had been thrust into. The nature within him, the desire to build, to craft and teach for peace, all turned into a weapon of war. His foster siblings, Heracon and his jealousy, Andos and his apathy, Caliphone the only one he considered any bond with, but suffered the same fatal flaw. They were Olympians. They were human. And every human Perturabo had met had wanted to use or kill him. He couldn't be a man, for a man was a flawed creature, devoid of the skill and strength of a being like him. An open heart became cold and bitter as the years began to pass. The offers of friendship, of camaraderie, rejected, for all the genius giant could see was a scheme within it. Perturabo was not like these Olympians, he told himself. He was far superior, a perception almost shattered, in an event left out of the chronicles, a story retold by a grandson centuries later. There was a problem, and for Perturabo it was a very big problem. Andos's statue was better. A lot better. Perturabo's was technically period, alright, but Andos somehow trapped the man's soul in bronze. When viewed from different angles, the statue revealed another facet of Shashal's character. Andos depicted pathos and tragedy. Through subtle means he told the story of Shashal's life in that one, single figure. Compared to Andos's statue, Perturabo's looked hollow, the way they tell it. There was never a finer piece of art made on Olympia, and Perturabo knew it. His face went grey, but he congratulated my grandfather, and the court gave Andos high honours. They were going to set the statues side by side, above the Caliphon Gate at Lokos in honour of both men. That never happened, because Perturabo destroyed them both. Within the court of Lokos, it had taken mere days, what his mortal foster brother had crafted in weeks. In that time, Perturabo couldn't help but taunt and boast, until the sculpture work stood side by side for all to see. He, Perturabo, had been beaten by a mere mortal. Perturabo's work was perfect. None could argue. Its measurement and craft the height of accuracy. But in Andos's statue, it captured the essence of what would forever remain out of reach for Perturabo. In a mind that recalled schematics and technology, His work was the perfection of a machine, of a weapon, devoid of the one thing the genius mind was incapable of achieving: the soul, the human touch. And perhaps to the being who built his inner walls on his superiority, his separation from the people he despised, it was the one thing that haunted him to his core: weakness. Perturabo destroyed Endorse's work. For the offense it caused him. He destroyed his own, for the weakness it represented. The decades passed, as Perturabo stood over the broken form of 3 assassins in his chamber, the only human he tolerated. Califone, his foster sister, gasping, trying to regain her breath. She had pleaded for him to spare one, to save him for the torturers. But in a rage that often overtook Perturabo, he could not hear her. As the superhuman squeezed the life out of the last one standing, his mind cleared from the haze, as Califone lamented the wasted opportunity. Perturabo did not. For in his mind a new clarity had taken hold. "Who planned this is of little consequence," he said. "Do you see? The power games of the satraps and the tyrants must stop. True peace will only come when our world is united. Peace can come from war, not the short peace that Olympia enjoys, but a long and total peace where no man need raise his weapons against another. I speak to you of a new era." Whoever had sent the assassins didn't matter. Perhaps it was Damokos, Perturabo thought. Maybe even Endorse. Peace. The nature crafted into his flesh by the being he longed to meet. The endless politics, the watching over his shoulder for inferior creatures attempting to kill him. Perturabo would destroy it all. These bickering tyrants behind their ancient walls would be torn down. Forced into a compliance that would humble them for generations. And then there would be peace. To the walls of the city-states, in machines men would call tanks, crafted from the mind of Perturabo, the forces of Lokos began their conquest. With casualties that paled the very commanders who had found him on the cliff of Mount Telephon, the city walls crumbled. It could have been done in other ways. Bombarding more from a distance first, slow, protracted sieges. All methods refused by Perturabo. Lokos had to prove overwhelming superiority. They needed the fear of their enemies, more than they needed their own men's lives. Perturabo admitted to himself that part of him wanted to impress those beside him. He resolved to push such emotions away in the future. They were distracting and dangerous. Perhaps part of him wished for the approval of the man who called himself his father. But it was not approval or love, but only ambition held in Damokos' eyes. Their screaming matches and awkward conversations. It is what one deserved when you tried to use Perturabo. In the marble halls of a broken people, the warlord of Lokos presented his cold logic. Live and accept his rule, or reject him and die. The lives of its nobles and citizens all part of a calculation in compliance. With each victory it brought Perturabo more resources, more pieces to fulfill the plan of silent peace. After years, Olympia stood conquered, all in the name of Damokos, his tyrant in name only, as his warlord of Lokos. Perturabo stood in the pyres of 5 million dead, and those unwilling to align with peace, enslaved. Perturabo allowed himself to become the very thing others had tried to use, a weapon that had needed the forged heat of war to hone him. And from his iron came strength, and from his strength came will. From his will came faith, from his logical faith came honour, and from his honour cometh iron. The day had arrived, a day where the maelstrom's gaze did not shine so bright. The reports came of a golden ship on Mount Telephon. Perturabo knew the truth within his heart. His creator had come for him. Through deep snow, over sheer cliff edges he scaled, pushing forward at a pace so fast even his fingers bled. In the clouds, where the oxygen levels made it difficult even for him to breathe, Perturabo saw a man. No, a giant in gold. A father waiting for his son. I am the Emperor of Terra, and all of mankind, said the man, now speaking aloud. His voice was calm and full of the promise of great things. You are Perturabo. I am, said Perturabo. You know me. The Emperor laid a hand on his shoulder. Warriors in tall helms and golden armor were arrayed behind the Emperor. They watched him closely. You are as dauntless as I intended you to be, and you have achieved much. His smile broadened with delight. I see a world at peace, filled with mighty castles and marvelous devices. We have much to talk of, and I can teach you a great deal. I sense the hunger in you for knowledge. I think you and I have many nights of discussion ahead of us. Yes, said Perturabo. Please. He was struck near dumb by wonder. Will you offer me your allegiance? Will you join with me and pledge yourself to humanity's service? The warriors in gold tensed, their weapons pointed at Perturabo. Ordinarily, this insult would have sent him into a towering rage. But Perturabo's arrogance, until then immutable as iron, melted and swept away as he answered meekly. I want nothing more. I swear I shall serve you faithfully for all time. This I pledge. The Emperor looked at him with an expression of infinite wisdom. Deep in his eyes, sorrow lurked. Perturabo wished more than anything to banish that sadness, if he could. Then rise, my son. The sadness was hidden away again, so that Perturabo doubted he had ever seen it, and was ashamed he could impute such an emotion to so perfect a being. Your road will be hard, but few are worthy of it, said the Emperor. I have many tasks for you. The indefatigable, the indomitable, the unrelenting. You shall be my Lord of Iron. Perturabo cried out in unabashed joy. Finally he felt acceptance without caveat. Love radiated from the Emperor for his found son. Perturabo basked in it. For the first time, he felt a sense of true belonging. And may it forever be so, said Perturabo. The Imperium of Mankind, a galactic-spanning empire from a throne on Terra. A singular vision from the master of mankind, one who called himself father to Perturabo, his creator, a being that would value him for who he was. The walls of cold logic, of arrogance, of bitterness and anger crumbled before the majesty of the golden giant. Perturabo pledged Olympia and himself to humanity's service. No, the Emperor's service. Perhaps for the first time in his life, Perturabo felt true joy, unmarred by bitterness and paranoia. He felt his human heart swell with pride for his first genuine compliments. Dauntless, indefatigable, indomitable and unrelenting, his father called him. A difficult road lay ahead, said the Emperor, but Perturabo felt his will. His unyielding iron desperate to make those sad eyes happy. The Lord of Iron would venture, joining his father at the heart of the ever-expanding Great Crusade, to his true homeworld of Terra. Finally he had the answers he sought his entire life. He was no man. He was a Primarch, one of 20 demigod sons crafted to be the generals, at the forefront of the Great Crusade, to lead mankind into a new golden era. And for the first time in his life, Perturabo had a being he saw as superior. and beings he saw as equals. Through the great libraries in the Imperial Palace, the Lord of Iron would indulge, delving into its knowledge, and meeting those who would be called his equals, his true family, his brothers, Horus, Ferrus Manus, Magnus the Red, all wonders like him, until the time came when Perturabo ascended the golden steps to his father's side once again. "You will be my hammer, Perturabo," his father had said. "What our enemies build to keep us from our destiny, you must put asunder."
No one shall build anything I cannot break open. No one.
"I know," said his father, turning his gaze to the stars. At the top of the world they were clear as diamonds. The palace built high above the low-lying fog of chemical residue from centuries of war and its ashen aftermath. Perturabo followed his father's gaze, relishing the prospect of leading his warriors out to those self-same stars. "Great is the guilt of an unnecessary war, my son," said his father. "It stains the very soul forever, and is like a cancer that gnaws away all that was once good in a man. To send men to their deaths without noble purpose, and consign those who fight to the grave is a burden no man can bear, and no man should forgive. Always remember that, my son. Fight when you must, but wield the power of your legion with a solemn heart. Once unleashed, the beast of war does not return to its iron cage until it has sated its hunger in the blood of innocence." The words had been said in a reflective tone, as though they carried his father's regret and a weight of bitter experience. Now they echoed from the past with a sting of prescience and a viper's bite of forewarning. "But what I ask of you is necessary beyond the understanding of most men," continued his father. "Many in this new world think me vainglorious, citing my hubris and declaring a manifest destiny to rule the stars. But they understand nothing of the truth of the universe. They cannot know this is a war of species survival. Either we go out into the galaxy and win it in time, or we will be consigned to a slow death, or a stagnation that may be far worse."
Your sons will not let that happen.
His father had smiled. "It may already be inevitable."
Nothing is inevitable.
"I hope you are right, Perturabo," said his father, and a moment of genuine affection passed between them, the like of which Perturabo had not felt before and would never feel again. "Over the centuries, our species has tried many ways of fighting the forces of evil. Prayer, fasting, good works, ritual and holy books. But that is not how we will fight it."
Evil.
Perturabo had asked. "A turn of phrase," said the Emperor, not quite convincingly. "All those ways were meaningless and ineffective, and saw millions dead. We, on the other hand, will fight with bolters, blades, and the courage of the greatest warriors this galaxy has ever seen. That is how you fight evil." That word again.
The Iron Warriors are yours to command, Father. Wherever our paths take us, whatever we meet and however long it takes, we will not fail you.
His father turned to look at him, his eyes like two siege augers digging into Perturabo's heart, coring his very essence and learning everything about him in the blink of an eye. But whatever he had seen was not reflected in his impenetrable expression, and Perturabo had spent long years trying to breach that wall. The Emperor looked from the towered windows, over the mountains that pierced the high clouds of the world, over the million-strong workforce still set to transforming this mountain range into an edifice deserving of awe. His gaze encompassed everything laid before him, from the newest settlements securing around the palace precincts, to the distant war-ravaged lands of the fallen techno-barbarian kings, all the way to the farthest satrapies. I can no longer see the paths and outcomes leading from this moment, said his father, as anabatic winds lifting off the plain below filled the silence between them.
Is that why Magnus and his legion remain on Terra while the rest of us crusade across the stars?
Partly, though he will join you soon enough. I hope that one day Magnus will return to me again, for he sees much that I do not.
He will not stay on crusade,
said Perturabo, disappointed. Magnus will return to Terra, but not for a very long time, said the Emperor, turning to him as though surprised at his dismay. You and he are close.
I've only met him a few times,
said Perturabo after a moment's consideration.
But yes, I like him. He's already helped me in translating some of the more obscure texts in my collection. I think he and I will be good friends.
Why?
We share a love of learning and a hunger to know new things. After all, without culture and learning, what's the point of any crusade? To destroy? To lay waste? No. If a crusade is to have purpose, it needs to forge something better in its wake.
Ah, the words of your Firenze polymath, said the Emperor with a soft grin.
And here I thought to pass it off as my own wisdom,
said Perturabo, with a matching smile. Nature or nurture, Olympia had become the forge. But for Perturabo, his iron was born of the master of mankind. His father spoke words that seemed to fulfill the destiny he had felt within his chest. He was to be the hammer, the breaker of walls, not a weapon to serve in the interests of a tyrant. He was a son, a general to build the golden age for humanity to come. The schematics, the knowledge locked away within his mind evident to that destiny. If Perturabo had ever been capable of love, it beamed for the Emperor of mankind. One who saw what he had built on Olympia, and how he had built it, raining nothing but praise upon him. And just as he was a son to the master of mankind, the Emperor gifted sons to Perturabo, the Astartes, super soldiers created with his own genetics, a legion of thousands, 1 or 20 to battle the enemies of mankind across the Great Crusade, a force to battle the evil his father had spoken of. The choice of phrase had been strange to the Lord of Iron. Had the Emperor not made him to dismiss the terms of the supernatural? Had the cold logic within his mind not condemned the mystical language of the priests of Olympia? He wanted to push further, to question. But who could question a being so perfect? And what would his father believe? Would his questioning be seen as weakness? It was loyalty. It was trust. It was the heeding of a wisdom from a son to a father. A loyalty Perturabo would take to the stars. The great ocean, said Magnus. It allows even those without our gifts to perceive the realm beyond. Perturabo nodded, and set down the Antikythera. I suspected as much, he said with a sigh, turning to lift something heavy from another part of his workbench. You remember what our father told us in the Hall of Leng, when he spoke of the warp and the danger of looking too deeply into its heart? I do, said Magnus, but this has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with that, as well as you know. But we will speak of this later. Perturabo's arm swung around, and he smashed the delicate mechanisms of the Antikythera with a heavy hammer. The metal of the device buckled and split, the precision ground lenses shattering into 1,000 fragments. Brother, no! Cried Magnus as the pieces fell to the floor. Why? Perturabo replaced the hammer on his workbench and said, Because I will have no part in aiding you delving into things that you've been told to leave well alone. Our Father knows more than us. He has seen further than us. If he tells us there are regions of the warp into which even he does not dare look, then we are beholden to accept that. The warp. A realm of madness, whose navigation was essential to the Imperium. A place Perturabo and his brothers were sworn not to delve too deep. Though perhaps the nagging suspicion never left his thoughts. They were sworn not to dare look into some of its regions. Yet from his first memories of life, when Perturabo looked to the sky, it was the warp staring at him. As the Imperium's Great Crusade spread across the stars, it brought unity in its compliance, alongside the Imperial truth, a doctrine that matched Perturabo's own cold logic. The talks of mysticism, of religion and ignorance was to be banished. So why, in a universe of cold logic, did Perturabo feel something was watching him from the wound called the Eye of Terror? Only once before a brother, before Ferrus Manus, Perturabo tried to speak of it. The dismissal. The judging look from those silver eyes ensured he would never speak of it again, lest the Emperor see the cracks within the being that called himself his hammer. No, the Emperor demanded perfection. He demanded no weakness. A perfection that extended from father to son, and from Perturabo to his own. The 4th Legion, the Iron Warriors were assembled before their Primarch. They shall be my finest warriors, the Emperor had declared. Yet when Perturabo looked upon their combat record, he found it wanting. They were the 4th Legion, the sons of great Perturabo, and yet their glories, their honour lagged behind his brother's legions. Guilliman, the lion sanguineous Horus, even Rogel Dawn's. These so-called sons needed punishment. They needed reforging. Their iron was brittle. Perturabo ordered decimation. 1 in every 10 legionary would be killed by his brothers, so all knew the punishment for weakness. With the blood of their friends still staining their hands, the unbreakable litany was formed. From iron cometh strength, from strength cometh will, from will cometh faith, from faith cometh honour, and from honour cometh iron. A mantra declared to a legion reborn. Its weakness culled in numbers and in the hearts of men unwilling to achieve victory at all cost. Decades turned to centuries. From the orbit of Terra to now the galactic rim, the forces of the Great Crusade enacted compliance upon thousands of worlds. From human civilizations to all manner of Xenos threats, the Iron Warriors battled the worst the galaxy had to offer. From the world of Ullanor, after 2 centuries of war, the Emperor declared his retirement from the front lines of the Great Crusade. His return to Terra and the grand project there, a secret, even from his own sons. In his stead a brother would be raised above equals, as Horus Lupercal was elevated to War Master. Had Perturabo failed? Was he and his sons not worthy of such elevation? Had any of the Legion faced the grueling, grinding sieges his had faced? As the decades turned to centuries, the silent snubs from Terra became more apparent. His brother Primarchs, other legions were lauded, praised by the people of the Imperium, showered with time and affection from their father, whilst the Iron Warriors died in their thousands in the backwaters. Their glories unremarked and unremembered. And when the offer came to reforge Terra into an impregnable fortress, the reward went to another. It went to Rogel Dawn and his Imperial fists. The slight must have been purposeful, Perturabo thought, but dared not say aloud. After 2 centuries of war, the orders came from Terra, an assault upon the backwaters of the Sactrada deeps. The Hrud. A Xenos species whose very presence manipulated time, had turned Iron Warrior fortresses into rubble, transforming legionaries into haggard old men within their armour. Even in his panoply of war, the Logos, a suit altered and crafted by Perturabo's own hands, rusted and flaked in their presence, with titanic hammer blows at a speed no human could perceive, in a battle with tactics and strategies few could ever conceive of. Perturabo and his sons bled in the dirt of the Hrud's Warren world. Even utilizing refractive fields bore no victory. As in their desperation, the Xenos separated an entire continent from the planets, evaporating to safety as a shockwave killed 20% of Perturabo's sons. In the wake of pointless failure, in another war that would go unremembered and unremarked, a son knelt before his father, the removal of his helm revealing the propaganda's lie, that no space marine would live forever. Even Perturabo shuddered at the wrinkled and liver-spotted face of Barabbas Dantioch. "My lord," Dantioch went on, "as an Iron Warrior, as your son, it shames me to the core of my being to suggest we should pursue this course of action. But should all the Hrud migrate out of this sector, we shall be the instigators of a problem that will persist for hundreds of years. Destabilizing a large portion of the galactic north, we should withdraw, my lord, and reaffirm our orders. Perhaps there has been some kind of mistake." This last statement was too much for the Lord of Iron. "The Emperor of Mankind makes no mistakes!" shouted Perturabo. He powered to his feet, towering over the ruined warsmith. "His plans are flawless. How could it be any other way?" Dantioch did not like the bitterness of this statement. "Then perhaps, my lord, it is your mistake in persisting with this campaign in the face of all available information." Dantioch stared fearlessly into his lord's eyes. "There is no shame in admitting defeat," he said softly. "No man can win every battle. Not even a Primarch. Not even you." The Emperor of Mankind made no mistakes. Yet the campaign for the Cytrada Deep was the orders of a fool. How could his father have allowed this? How could his father time and time again have ordered him and his sons into conflicts that bled them dry? Or, a more terrifying thought lay beneath, that he, Perturabo, without seeking clarity, had driven on ahead. That his endless pursuit of victory had been the mistake. A thought he could not allow himself. To question the orders was to question the Emperor. To question the orders was to show he was not up to the task. It was to show that he did not have the iron within, iron without. Dismissed, banished from his lord's side, Dantioch and his survivors were given exile, for the stain their failure had brought the Legion. The Trident, the advisors stood outside the chambers of Perturabo. Foryx, Gold and Folk, all noticing the growing temperament in their lord as the decades had passed. The early days of the Grey Crusade had been years of hope. The bond between the Lord of Iron and the Emperor strong, as strong as the bond between brother Primarchs and Legions. But after each Pyrrhic victory, after each celebration gifted to others, the mood of the Lord of Iron had darkened. The paranoia had returned. Had there been some reason the Fourth were ignored? Some failure, some weakness the Emperor dared not say aloud? The frequency of rage had not gone unnoticed, from the dressing down of words to the breaking of objects within his chambers. After weeks, Foryx and the command bridge looked to their emerging lord, the awkward smile on his tired face a welcome relief. From iron cometh strength, and it was from that strength his sons drew fierce loyalty. The Legion was wounded, but no challenge was too great, no mountain too tall, no walls too thick. The mood of the Legion had brightened, until a messenger approached, his news draining the colour from Perturabo's face. Olympia had rebelled. No son of the 4th Legion had seen the expression Perturabo's features contorted into. A rage, so deep and primal, consumed him. He tore the mortal in two and howled. But just as quickly it passed, pressing and compressing beyond hate into something much colder. The warriors around their lord tightened their grip upon their guns, as Perturabo ordered the Legion back to their homeworld, back to Olympia. The sounds of walls crumbling, of bolter fire and artillery never ceased, but seemed to muffle as Perturabo stood over the preserved corpse of Damokos. Enshrined on velvet, Perturabo placed his hands atop the glass. He had never seen the calculating face of Damokos look so peaceful. "Father," he breathed aloud, for the first time. What was left of Olympian nobility had tried to negotiate. They had pleaded for their world for time to rest, to spare one generation from the grueling recruitment killing their planet. And their only answer was decimation. Punishment from a face contorted by bitterness, anger, and in truth, embarrassment. What would the Emperor, what would his brother Primarchs think, to be the only Primarch whose homeworld had rebelled against the Imperium? Yet that anger seemed to bleed away from Perturabo, as he stood over the man who had given him a home. Damokos was some years dead, so now there were no more schemes, no false offers of friendship or kindness. There was nothing at all. For all that Damokos was and had been, now he was gone. And the words Perturabo wished to speak would fall on dead ears. Perturabo turned to an approaching figure, one whose visage shocked him to his core. As the palace of Lokos shook, as Olympia burned, Perturabo looked once more upon the one who had called him family, the ancient face of his sister, Californe.
People do not listen. They do not know what is good for them.
People do not bow to you without love, without respect. Great tyrants rule with the blessing of their people, effective ones through fear. But no tyrant ever achieved anything through indifference. You have sold your way to damnation. You refused to accept the love of the people. You were given the aberration of a god, and an army to conquer the stars. And your first act was to decimate your legion.
They had failed,
he said, clenching his fist.
Failed to do what? Be the best? You waste your men to prove a point that needs no proof, and then grow angry when no one notices, and praises your self-sacrifice. Your petulance has cost this planet whole generations of its youth, bringing your legion up to strength again and again. You have been an absent king. You have not seen the empty schools, the haunted mothers, the husbandless women.
My brother Kurz did worse. I have come to set things right, not to destroy everything as he did. This punishment for treachery must be borne, but I will rebuild Olympia.
Comparing yourself to the worst of your brothers to excuse the enormity of your own crimes, said Californe. Listen to your words. Setting things to right would be ceasing recruitment, and to hear the grievances of the people with forgiveness in your heart. Not this massacre. You slaughtered the delegation that came to see you. Brother, in that moment you lost everything. This was a good place once. Bellicose and unfair, but it had its measure of beauty and nobility. You have destroyed all of that. Why, brother?
I have other brothers now, my true siblings. I am not yours.
Californe wept, her tears tracking through the dust caking her face.
And do they care for you as your family here did?
Damikos never cared for me.
No. He only adopted you into his household and raised you as his son.
A calculated risk. He used me for his own ends.
He reached out to you over and over, she retorted. You are as blind as you are selfish. All wrapped up in yourself, in your own brilliance, in your difference. Her voice changed, becoming quiet. I cared for you.
What of it?
He said coldly.
What good did the affection of mortals ever do for me?
You always thought yourself superior to those around you.
I am.
He said plainly.
Look upon me, foster sister. I was made by the Emperor of all mankind, one of 20 sons forged to conquer the galaxy. You are withered, yet I am young. Of course I am superior.
Californe threw up her hand and looked away. What happened to the man I knew? Who wished for no more war? The boy who drew such wonderful things.
Nobody wanted them. The Emperor uses me for the most thankless tasks. My men are thrown against the worst of horrors, given the most grueling roles. We are divided, our talents ignored, our might reduced to splitting rock. My father ignores me. My men go unsung. Our triumphs are unremembered. My brothers mock me as my men bleed. Nobody cares.
Is that so? She said. Let me present a different hypothesis to you, brother. Use that fine mind of yours to judge its worth. Here is my version of the story. The Emperor of all mankind came here and found a son whom he valued. He saw an indomitable will, with unshakable determination. He recognized that you would not give up, that you would rise to best any difficulty, that the tedious to you is a necessary challenge to overcome as the glorious, and neither are to be shirked. Seeing these qualities in you, your father set you difficult tasks, not because he saw no value in you, but the exact opposite. He can trust no one else to get them done.
That is not true,
said Perturabo, though the acid of uncertainty began to eat at him.
He underestimates me. They all do.
Californe went on. For a long time, I thought you a fool to follow the Emperor. After all, he is a tyrant like all the rest. Look at what he has done to you, I thought. He has brutalized you, and your wars have brutalized your home. But the truth is, brother, I have followed your campaigns carefully, and I noticed a pattern that disturbed and then alarmed me. Always you do things in the most difficult way, and in the most painful manner. You cultivate a martyr's complex, lurching from man to man, holding out your bleeding wrists so they might see how you hurt yourself. You brood in the shadows when all you want to do is scream, "Look at me!" You are too arrogant to win people over through effort. You expect people to notice you there in the half-darkness and point and shout, there is the great Perturabo. See how he labors without complaint." You came to this court as a precocious child. Your abilities were so prodigious that nobody stopped to look and see what you were becoming. She got shakily to her feet. Exoskeletal braces whirred under her skirts. Perturabo, this will anger you, but you never truly grew into a man.
I am not a man. I am far more.
In those words is the poison that spoils your potential. It is not the Emperor who has driven this world into rebellion. It is not he who has held it back. It is you and your woeful egotism. Let me tell you, my brother, you who affects to despise love so much, yet must certainly crave it over all other things. You are the biggest fool I have ever met." With a cry of anger, Perturabo lunged forwards and grasped her by the throat. He raised her up until she was level with his eyes. She grabbed weakly at his wrist. Her mouth gasped for air.
"I am far from a fool, sister. I wished for more from life. I hoped to build a better world for people. I have found that there is only brutality. Whether the court intrigues of the tyrants or this war to conquer the stars, it is all the same. Violence is the constant of human existence."
"It need not be. That is the violence within you speaking."
No. I know my own limitations. My temper does not cloud my judgment. It focuses it. Humanity is venal and fractious. It can never be governed as one. Everything else is an impossible dream. There is no peace. There is no goodness.
He stroked away the hair from his sister's face with one hand as he strangled her with the other.
And in such a flawed universe, there can be no mercy for traitors.
She choked, trying and failing to speak. Coldly, Perturabo squeezed the life from her.
You have lived long enough.
She kept her eyes locked with his as he throttled her. With a last minor effort, he crushed her neck. "Great is the guilt of an unnecessary war, my son," the Emperor had said. "It stains the soul forever, and is like a cancer that gnaws away all that was once good in a man. To send men to their deaths without noble purpose, and consign those you fight to the grave is a burden no man can bear, and no man should forgive. Always remember that, my son. Fight when you must, but wield the power of your legion with a solemn heart. Once unleashed, the beast of war does not return to his iron cage, until it has sated its hunger in the blood of innocence." Lowering the corpse of one he had called sister, the Lord of Iron, master of the 4th Legion, let out a whimpered sob. He turned to look outside the broken glass of a window, to see the fire and death, to hear the screams of innocence. "I have become cursed," he said to himself. His excuse was insanity, but what was Perturabo's? He saw now that Califone was right, that he stood aside and expected to be lauded, becoming angry when he had not been, falsely interpreting his father's and brother's lack of praise for hatred of him, causing him to bleed his sons in search for praise that would never come. In the ruins of Lokos, Foryx approached his lord, dismissing the others before they could see this weakness. "The Emperor will never forgive us for this," said Perturabo. "The Emperor will never forgive us. The Emperor cannot forgive us. Ever. This was not the action of an honorable man. I have slain my foster sister and destroyed my own world. I swore an oath to the Emperor that I would spread his message and bring the worlds of mankind back into the fold of terror. By his action, I have defied his edicts and come close to breaking my oath. For what iteration of imperial law allows this? When the issue might have been resolved through diplomacy. The rebellion was my fault, and how did I react?" His voice dropped further, and he gripped Foryx's pauldron. It buckled under the Primarch's frightening strength. "I am lost, my son. What have I become?" Olympia lay in ruins, decimated by a Primarch lost to paranoia and bitterness. The 4th Legion awaited a censure that never came. They had massacred their own people.
only to be answered with an affirmative of another successful compliance. The Emperor did not condemn his son. He didn't say anything at all. The sorrow began to smoulder into the bitterness once again. Why? Did his father not care? Perturabo desired punishment, accountability, redemption for his sins, and his father offered him nothing. In the Lord of Iron's darkest hour, one finally approached his side, one who called himself brother. The War Master Horus Lupercal approached Perturabo, offering him what their uncaring father did not: acceptance, redemption, purpose. Horus spoke of a new truth, one purposely hidden from them, a truth of the powers within the war, powers the Emperor had lied about, power the Emperor had bargained for and stolen. The passion, the venom in Horus's words was undeniable. The War Master spoke of a future where he and many of their brothers were dead, cast off so that the Emperor could be worshipped as a god. A crashing revelation came to Perturabo. Honey in his ears from Horus's lips. The Emperor had used him, just as Damokos had used him. The Emperor had used him as a weapon to craft an Imperium he would never see. The Emperor did not truly care. There was no love in his eyes. But Horus loved him. He was his brother. He knew the strength of Perturabo. Together they would build a new Imperium, one where the 4th Legion would be celebrated as the heroes they deserved to be. Perturabo and his sons had been the prisoners within the cave. The Emperor was the priest, killing those who sought to escape. Now was the time for Perturabo and his sons to join Horus, to step out of the cave and show the Emperor he was no weapon to be used and unappreciated. He had been the Emperor's hammer, his siege master, his sword thrusting into the galaxy. But Perturabo was more than a sword. Even a sword with a soul would learn to hate its owner, if its edge was never sharpened and the blood never wiped from it. Horus would see the brother who would stand by his side, as the galaxy would burn. On the killing fields of Isstvan V, Perturabo and his legion stood side by side with the Wordbearers, Night Lords and Alpha Legion. At Isstvan III, the War Master Horus had declared his open rebellion, purging loyalists within his own legion, as the warp itself began to become turbulent, cutting off entire sectors by the aid of these new allies. The truth hidden from them by the Emperor, creatures that called themselves Chaos. At Isstvan V, the Salamanders and Ravenguard hailed their brother legions. As Ferrus Manus and his iron hands pressed on heedlessly, the silence stretched for an eternity, until the Iron Warriors unleashed their bolters. What began as a siege had turned into a massacre, as 3 loyal legions were decimated. Assembling before the War Master Horus, Perturabo and his sons watched him raise the severed head of Ferrus Manus. The roar of nearly 1 million Astartes cried out, "Death to the false Emperor." The traitors had proven their superiority, though the stink of something foul had emanated from amongst their ranks. From the Wordbearers and Emperor's children, the touch of this chaos was apparent. The warp was within them, supplementing what should have been their strength. A sight that disgusted Perturabo and his sons. For one to rely on something else other than one's own iron was simply weakness. Like tendrils, the forces of the traitors splayed out across the galaxy, beginning the reconquest of a divided Imperium. Weeks had turned to months into years, as Perturabo and his sons stood on the plains of Hydrocaudatus. As the 3rd Legion, Fulgrim and his sons approached, their armor and visage warped by excess and debauchery, evidence of them delving into the strength offered by these gods of chaos. The 4th Legion had faced a near disaster in the Void War of Fall. Only intervention from distant orders of Dawn had snatched victory away from the jaws of defeat for the Iron Warriors. And vengeance would be had. Each year the heresy had passed. Each Imperial Fist citadel, each Imperial Fist garrison across the galaxy was crushed, and in the ruins of Hydra Caudatus, another demonstration of 4th Legion prowess was where they met their corrupted cousins. The Phoenician, Fulgrim. He stepped down from his nude slave-drawn monstrosities, gifting his brother a fur cloak with a prized gem, a gift the Lord of Iron received, offering 2 captive Imperial Fists in return. The war to remove the false Emperor from his throne has stagnated, and so Fulgrim had come to him, to speak of a weapon, one located within the maelstrom that had haunted Perturabo's life, within the Eye of Terror. It was a weapon, Fulgrim pleaded, a weapon that could end the war, a weapon to tear down the walls of the palace, and allow Perturabo to settle the question of who was superior, the Lord of Iron or the Praetorian. Hounded in guerrilla warfare by shattered legions of Isfahan, the Lord of Iron found his allies wanting, obsession and arrogance blinding their tactical logic. Even his own sons had returned from fraternization, sick with the same weakness. And so, to his workshop chambers, Perturabo summoned Fulgrim. Perturabo's hand flashed out and gripped Fulgrim's hair. With sudden force, he slammed his brother's face into the Warhound. The wondrous automaton shattered into 1,000 pieces, as Fulgrim's head crunched into the pitted surface of the workbench. Bone broke, blood splattered, cogs flew, tiny springs and gear levers spun off. Your warriors have no discipline. Monsters fight your battles, and you have allowed your entire vessel to be sanctified in the name of vanity. But no more. From here onwards, I am in charge, and for the duration of this mission, your legion is mine to command. Your warriors will obey my orders. They will follow my lead, and they will do nothing except by my command. If you agree to that, then we will continue on into the Eye of Terror and finish this together. If you do not, then I will take my legion and leave you here. Do you understand? This war had changed them all. It is undeniable. But now Perturabo saw the truth. It had changed their bonds too. The love he had had for his brothers was weakness. It had blinded him to the reality of their own failings. His brothers in treachery had sold their iron to gods of the warp, ones his father had lied about. Perhaps the Brotherhood of the Great Crusade was truly over, and now there was only this flimsy alliance, and the honor to Horus. No brother, but a general, the leader who saw his value. Into the Eye of Terror, the 4th and 3rd Legions sailed, invading the remains of an Eldari crone world. The weapon, the Angel Exterminatus, lie in its depths. But through the shattered landscapes and labyrinths, the Lord of Iron's paranoia grew. The sleeping guardians of the Eldari awoke, erupting in a frenzy of violence that drew the Lord of Iron and the Phoenician deeper. Until at its center, abandoned and with rage coursing through him, Perturabo confronted Fulgrim. The Phoenician finally unveiled his lies. There was no weapon, for he was to become the Angel Exterminatus. Activating the Malgator Stone upon the gifted cloak, Perturabo fell to his knees. His very strength and soul sapped from him, his life an offering to the dark gods in another's ascension. Through a smile with no love within it, Fulgrim offered his brother a place in the dark god's embrace, piercing his mind into the Lord of Irons, to see his deepest desire. The world as Perturabo knew it was replaced by a city he had dreamed into being, every night since leaving Olympia. He stood in the center of a great boulevard of marbled stone,
its width lined by tall trees and magnificent statuary. Clad only in a long shinton robe of pale cream and sandals of softest leather, he was garbed as a scholar and a civic leader. He was a man who lived for peace, not war, and the fit of that settled upon him like a second skin. The air was achingly clear, scented with mountain pine from the high glens and fresh water from the crystal falls. The sky was wide and blue, streaked with clouds like wisps of breath. Even knowing this was a lie didn't stop Perturabo from admiring his handiwork. Taking in the rugged vistas of mountainous beauty, the snow-capped peaks and clean lines of the city around him. Lokos, the grim mountain fastness of Damakos remade into the mind of his adopted son. Buildings the like of which had only ever been imagined filled the city, each one as familiar as a father's sons, yet each one an impossibility, for none had ever been constructed. Behind him was a Thalicron, but fashioned from polished marble and oosleet, porphyry, gold and silver. All around him were the galleries of justice, the halls of commerce, the palace of remembrance and the dwellings of the city's inhabitants. The people of Lokos thronged the boulevard, moving with unhurried grace and contented lives. Everywhere Perturabo looked, he saw men and women of peace, with ambition and hopes, dreams and the means to make them real. These were the people of Olympia as he had always wished them, clean of limb, hale of heart, and united by purpose. They welcomed him, each smile genuine and heartfelt. They loved him, and their happiness was reflected in every kind word, every gesture of respect, and every warm greeting. Peace. Perturabo dreamt of peace, as he always had. He dreamt of a universe where he was no warrior, but a builder, a cultivator, a diplomat. But this was forever a dream, because Damakos had used him for war, just as the Emperor had used him for war. No one, not Damakos, not the Emperor, not even his brothers knew of what he dreamt. No one cared enough to ask. Strength sapped from Perturabo, his essence consumed for another. He began to condense it all, the bitterness, the feelings of betrayal. He poured it into a core of hatred as cold as his iron. Forces of the Brother Legions and the shattered Loyalists interrupted, allowing the Lord of Iron to rise. He hefted Forgebreaker hammer and slammed it into the glowing form of Fulgrim. In an explosion of light, the body of Fulgrim obliterated and reformed. Perturabo stared in horror, as Fulgrim transcended into a demon prince of Slanesh. Revulsion and grief overcame Perturabo, shocked by the perversion of the perfection of a Primarch's form. In an echo's cry, the winged, snaked form of Fulgrim winked out of the material verse, as Foryx and the Iron Warriors followed their lord to their ships, evacuating in the ruins of their failure. Lost within the warp rift that had haunted his life, Perturabo and the Iron Warriors drifted, their place within this war, within this galaxy unknown, until an allied Sons of Horror's ship docked within the flagship's bay. Figures once in teal plate strode down the rampart, their visage one of rust and decay. "The storm is within haul," said Kalik. "What did the storm send you to say?" asked Perturabo. "It sent us to make you an offer. There is a throne for you, Lord of Iron," said Kalik, and he shivered as he spoke. Volk noticed a flash of red in the paper-dry lips. "A throne that weeps within the tears of your enemies. And with the throne, a crown that once on your brow will make the iron of your blood eternal. You are rotting, Lord of Iron. You layer metal on your skin, and bind the killing edges closer to you, because they make you feel the strength that is bleeding out of you. You feel this truth. You know it in the fevered tremble of your skin. Kalix's body was moving, his shoulders heaving, as though the muscles inside his armor were writhing even as his voice held steady. The sixfold prince has bitten deep and feasted long. The wound festers within your soul. You are dying. Your iron is rust. Perturabo did not move, but Volk thought that the shadows deepened in his hollow face.
"Launch interceptors, all squadrons," said Perturabo,
halting in his stride, suddenly still. His gaze was hollow.
"Burn them from the void."
He was dying, a wound within his soul. Another lie of the Emperor, one who had corrupted him to bear the logic of the material verse. One who had kept the secret of this chaos to himself, stolen their power according to Horus. All for a future where he was worshipped as a god. To Perturabo, this corruption, this chaos, stunk of the weakness of priests, mysticism, demons, and rituals. Many of his fellow traitors had embraced it, leaving him once again to take the grunt's work. The Iron Warriors were bleeding as the years of the heresy had passed. This chaos was a weapon, and yet it bred weakness in its users. But for them the iron cometh strength. From strength cometh will, from will cometh faith, and from faith cometh honour, and from their honour cameth iron. Where was the iron in legions more obsessed with pawning for the favour of warp entities? Where was the iron in men whose cohesion was as corrupt as their forms? Perturabo refused the offer of ascension, of enslavement, and slaughtered the corrupted sons of Horus. From Olympia's fall to the Emperor's lies, to the broken bonds of brotherhood, Perturabo would choose his own path. He would remake his strength, a point he would prove with the War Master's summons. Beta Garmin was broken, and the summons of War Master Horus would bring Perturabo and his sons face to face with the corruption that pined for the Lord of Iron. From the mists of a massacred world, Perturabo and his sons stared out. From the eerie silence, figures within the mist emerged, as a charging form of the World Eaters clashed upon the shield wall of Ceramite. Never trusting his men with his life again since fall, the Lord of Iron stood alone with Forgebreaker in his hand, his automata guardians arrayed around him as a creature of nightmare, on leathery wings ascended for the kill. The hammer's head hit Angron's chest, brass armor shattered. The shock wave ripped outwards. Angron staggered. Perturabo stepped forwards, the hammer swinging back in a blurred sheet of lightning. Angron ran forwards before Perturabo could strike, and now it was Perturabo going back. Armor blackened as furnace flame wreathed from Angron's teeth. The axe struck again and again, blows that could end titans falling. Fresh wounds opened in Perturabo's armor, but still he stood.
"You think I am weak?"
Perturabo's voice boomed from the grill of his helm. Angron struck him twice again. Splinters of metal fell from the Lord of Iron as he staggered once more.
"But you have grown weaker, Angron."
The Demon Primarch lashed a kick into Perturabo, and struck once, twice, 3 times. The Lord of Iron stumbled back, crashing to his knees.
"I have learned. I have remade my strength, while you have sold yours out of despair."
His armor rent, blood pouring from his wounds. Perturabo stood victorious over the Demon Primarch Angron. Each failure, each victory belonged to the Lord of Iron. His strength was the iron of human will, and it came from a warrior's honor, smouldering in blood and heat. Perturabo offered not his brother of blood, but his brother of war the chance to make perhaps the last choice of his existence. To stand with him and Horus, to tear their lying father from the Golden Throne. Through a near decade of blood and death, the forces of the War Master gathered for the dark triumph at Ulanor. Lupercal, Lupercal, they chanted for Horus. This chaos, simply a weapon in the War Master's hands. As his brother Primarchs and legions, those tainted and untainted set out in the largest armada since the dawn of the Great Crusade, all roaring towards the heart of the Imperium, to the Imperial Palace and the false Emperor. The Iron Warriors Legion thrust into the outer reaches of the Sol system, behind a wave of lesser mortals and a few sons of Horus. The initial Void War played out over the data screens in Perturabo's quarters. Often he sat alone now, his automaton inner circle his only companions. Better for the paranoia and infrequent rages that flared when disappointment of his own sons struck him. Above terror itself, utilizing profane rituals, Horus, Fulgrim, Angron and Magnus' sons tore into reality, as each planet fell until terror alone stood. Dawn's defensive plans had been gifted in the last act by one calling himself Alfarius. And from this, the greatest siege in the history of humanity was born from the cold logic of Perturabo. Terror burned, as the outer defences of the Imperial Palace felt the might of traitors' guns. In the strategium above, in the court of the War Master, Perturabo continued his explanations. The roars of Angron, the jibing remarks from Fulgrim, even the presence of the now corrupted Mortarion pushed his patience to the limits. At times he too roared back in their faces, uncowed by their transformations. The cohesion of those who stank of the warp threatened to collapse the siege before its success, even as siege camps slammed down into the dust around the palace. It was then that the War Master Horus called Perturabo to his quarters. The Lord of Iron could not help but sneer at the corruption that lapped upon the walls, reminding him of the unnerving feeling that had haunted him his entire life from the Eye of Terror. To his dismay, into what seemed more like temple quarters, Perturabo strode towards his brother. What had once been teal and even pearl long ago was now black as soot. Perturabo felt uneasy, though he managed to hide it well as he went down on one knee before his War Master. He wanted to vent his frustrations, that he should be leading on the dust of terror as they speak, but soothing words spilled from his brother. You are too important to waste. Your sons too. They are valuable. Why would I send you down to bleed with the dregs? I have greater things in mind for you. When have you ever cared for the lives of my sons? Or for my talents? Horus looked at him pityingly. When have I not? You are the best of them, brother. It is a siege, Perturabo. There will never be another battle like this. You are the finest engineer in the galaxy. I protect my best assets. I preserve them for the right moment. You do not toss your advantage away. Then you finally acknowledge my worth, said Perturabo stiffly. Finally, I have always acknowledged your worth, said Horus. That is why I speak with you alone. The rest of our siblings must be dealt with together, like children. But not you, bold, brave Perturabo. You will have your victory, and all the triumphs due you. When you accomplish the task I set you, every creature in the galaxy will know your name. All shall fear you. None shall doubt your brilliance. Perturabo was enraptured. Horus smiled, but there was no humanity in it. Acknowledgement, forgiveness and punishment, all that the Lord of Iron had desired, all from one that was not diminished by his warp taint, but empowered by it. One who claimed it as a weapon, I am the master of the Pantheon, not their servant, said Horus. The others are diminished creatures, slaves to darkness, the lost and the damned. Horus smiled regretfully. They were not strong enough. They give themselves to one small aspect of the warp. But you, Perturabo, you are too wise for that. Too clever. You preserve your individuality when others have lost theirs without realizing it has gone. Perturabo had broken from the Emperor and his lies. He would never be ensnared in the chains of another master, not like the others whose chaos taint had perverted their iron. But here stood Horus, master of it. His iron is strong enough to remain himself. Not himself, but more. This was a cause worthy of the Force allegiance. This was the opportunity to prove to their father the error of his choices. By crushing Dawn's defenses, he would prove to his father, to himself, and to Horus their iron within, iron without. Over weeks, the outer walls of the Imperial Palace fell. The skies were permanent night, blotted from the barrages that never ceased. The Force fellow traitors hurled themselves upon the Imperials, creating an ocean of corpses joining the rubble. Perturabo would not permit the use of this chaos within his own sons. He would not succumb his iron to the will of others. But perhaps, like Horus, he would allow its factoring into the equation of success. Hordes of the mortal lost and the damned, suffused with mutants and beastmen, were thrown like the fodder they were. In the Great Crusade, the Fourth had often bred high casualties amongst their mortal contingents. Yet now the Lord of Iron found the servants of Chaos all too willing to throw themselves into the meat grinder. In the months of endless slaughter, on the orders of Horus, Perturabo descended down to the surface of the besieged throne world. By his side, first Captain Abaddon, and Typhus, as Zardu Layak, the crimson apostle of the Word-Bearers, began his explanation. Were you to question Magnus, or one of his 1,000 sons, about the nature of the warp, you would come to a very different understanding to what I will demonstrate to you, said Zardu Layak. The mystics of Prospero analyzed the warp as analogy, thinking they might discern patterns and laws and equations from its movements. While it has moods and phases and textures, the warp is a law unto itself. And so that is how Magnus's hubris led him to folly. You must abandon any sense that there is a science to be learned, and instead focus on the concept of ritual and faith. It is the belief that shapes all things, and the dedication in the heart to the powers. Words, symbols, and actions are still physical properties of the ritual, to help shape the faith that stems from within. I have studied these mysteries for years, to smooth the passage, but it is my faith that creates the bond between me and the gods. For their boons, you must give yourselves over to them. Perturabo and Abaddon stiffened, clearly thinking of Fulgrim, Mortarion, and Angron. That is but one way, said Layak. The other is worship. Worship. Gods, said Perturabo neutrally. One did not need to bring the corruption within themselves to harness the power of chaos. Perhaps Perturabo felt his revulsion for sorcery dwindle, as his fascination grew. As one would place the ingredients into ammunition and load the weapon, so Zardu Layak took his ingredients. A larvae from the garden of Nurgle itself, combined with the Destroyer plague bound within Typhus, creating a tendril of a greater demon Korbak's utter blight. 2 centuries before, Perturabo had awoken with the cold logic of the universe within his very being. Yet now he bore witness to the logic of the primordial truth. Suffering, the foundational ingredient. Perhaps this chaos was more than a hidden truth. more than some weakness with 4 masters, but an idea. A united pantheon who could be pleased without the chains of enslavement. Perturabo allowed it. He allowed a warp-infected code to scramble the defense of the Lionsgate spaceport, and in a grand assault piloted by his son Kroger, the traitors' push upon the Lionsgate turned from meat grinder into a crushing victory, weakening the Emperor's psychic barrier, and manifesting the first true demons upon Terra. The fleet of the Iron Warriors burned through the atmosphere, as Perturabo stood upon his flagship's rampart, as he met the eyes of the being he had sworn to defeat. The eyes of Rogel Dawn. "You have turned lies into a weapon and guile into your shield," Dawn said. "Cultists, traitors, warp abominations. These are your allies now. To win with such powers is no victory at all." The denial snagged at Perturabo's pride, and he straightened. The iron circle clattered into attack formation around him. No victory. Am I not allowed my alliances, brother? Send away the Khan and the Angel. Will the Custodians and Silent Sisters stand aside to let us settle this equitably? If I bring a weapon, it is only to break a defense you have erected. If you are truly superior, it is time you stepped out of the protective shadow of our father. The Lionsgate spaceport had fallen, and with it came the Titan legions of the War Master. What had been bought in blood and the lives of men with iron in their hearts now opened the inner palace. The strategic game between the Lord of Iron and Praetorian played out, all for a War Master who over the weeks dare not show himself. Upon his throne, the chosen of the gods, War Master Horus battled their father in the Immaterian. So he said. Traitorous Astartes, mortal god, the lost and the damned, and even demons roamed the shrieking ruins of the Emperor's city. It was the 4th Legion's doctrine manifest, grinding warfare to the final kill stroke. But with each cycle, the pieces on the board became smaller and erratic. The Emperor's children followed their own whims. The Eaters of Worlds threw themselves at anything with a pulse. Even the sons of Horus rustled for their own victory, an arrogance Perturabo allowed to be curtailed beneath the Saturnine War. Months of grinding death, until once more the Lord of Iron was summoned to his War Master's side. Leaving his iron circle behind, he knelt before the true master of mankind, and felt the horror swell within him. It seemed as though he was a Primarch no longer, as if he'd become some primal force. The warp's infusion within the War Master had swollen him. Horus placed a talon upon his brother's shoulder. Black veins spidered his face. Perturabo felt his muscles tighten to cords. His armor felt hot, and for an instant, the War Master seemed not a man, but a shadow at the heart of an inferno. You shall ring the walls, brother, just as my might shall encircle our father. There shall be no respite from where the sun rises to where it sets. And Mortis shall walk as one. They shall open our way within. If Mortis walks against Mercury now, they shall fail, called Perturabo, and Forax felt the anger and will that edged his voice. They shall reach the wall, and it shall fall, said Horus. He turned and sat, and when he looked down at them, Forax had to avert his eyes. How can that be? Because I will it so, said Horus. Perturabo sat within his chambers within the Lion's Gate. The orders from Horus had been clear. They were to abandon their hard-won victory to the Death Guard and make for Mercury War, the strongest bastion of the Loyalist defense. This war had cost the Fourth dearly. It had been bleeding them across the galaxy until their guns had ran dry. The grinding war promised to Perturabo was replaced by a suicidal charge. Also when the ashes were settled, and Perturabo's legion lay dead, a new master of mankind could assume a throne bought by others' blood. Perturabo had looked one last time within the eyes of a face he had called brother, and wondered if there was anything left of the man he had known. The others were not strong enough, Horus had told him. Not strong enough to control this chaos. And now he saw neither was the War Master. He had succumbed. The chains of control were no longer in his hands. Staring at picked fiends and data screens had no longer worked in this galaxy-breaking war. Perturabo turned to the War Master's equerry entering the room, delivering the death sentence.
Order.
The words seemed to echo, though Perturabo had not raised his voice.
There is no order here now. This is not a war anymore. This is a storm. And you see it, don't you, emissary? Equerry to the War Master, who was once my brother. You see it. I am blind, but now I can see as you see. The Legion War is dead. The cause we raised arms for is a corpse. There is nothing that happens from here that can be called victory.
What are you saying, Lord? Said Foryx, his mind and voice moving out of sync with what his Primarch had just said, with the impossible thing his Primarch had just voiced. Perturabo walked to one of the chamber's windows and keyed a control. Blast shutters pulled up, grinding and squealing. Layers of fog and cloud hid the ground below. In the distance, the tops of towers rose from the folds of vapor. The orange light of a fading day folded over both. As Foryx looked, an explosion lit in the distance, large enough to shine through the murk. He had a feeling that he should walk away, that this was a moment that did not include him and should not be observed. He did not move.
How long to stand here?
Said Perturabo, his voice low.
A lifetime. Many lifetimes as most mortals live them.
He raised a hand, servos winding. Exo bracing and armor plate shifting. His hand opened, metal-clad digits reaching delicately for the distant towers of the unconquered palace.
I never wanted to be put to any of the uses you put me to, Father. All you have ever valued is destruction. All you have ever praised is weakness and pride. All that I wanted has been taken.
Perturabo's gaze was distant, as though he were focusing beyond what he could see to some infinite distance.
He is just like you, Father. Horus, your bright son. You both made us want to serve you, and you then made us kill our dreams with our own hands.
Perturabo looked out for a moment more, and then his fist closed, and he turned away from the view.
Know this, Equerry. I pity you. You see, and you know. And you fear for your legion and wonder what the oaths you swore mean now. Yet you do not have the strength and the power to do the only thing that is left to do.
Argonis looked as though he might reply, but the Lord of Iron had turned to Foryx.
Send a signal to all of our forces. Full withdrawal. Bring our fleet into dock and begin to embark. We will move to the system edge and translate. This is immediate.
Foryx did not move. The words he had just heard rang like bullets hitting iron. Lord.
It is over. Horus has given this battle to sorcerers and beasts. The war of legions is over. Mortarion comes here to take this place. He and what he has become is what this war is now. He comes at the will of Horus to be the agent of what will happen.
But he did not order our withdrawal.
I order it. It is my will. There is no victory here, just creatures and parasites pulling down a dying beast. It is gone. The Legion war is dead. The chance is gone. The cause is gone.
Perturabo paused and then shook his head.
We will not bleed for this. We will not break the circle of our iron for this.
Foryx nodded then. As you will it, my lord. He began to turn away and then stopped. All the blood of your legion, all the red iron spilled. Was it worth it to come this far and go no further? Asked Argonis. Perturabo was silent for a long moment. Pistons and weapons clicked. Shells exchanged between guns and ammunition feeds.
It was worth it to learn the truth. This universe does not care. We could bleed our last and it would not matter. Pour the blood of my warriors into the earth, and all that grows is the hunger for more.
He began to move towards the doors. If you shall go, called Argonis. If you defy the will of Horus, then your ship shall be burned from the stars.
They shall not. Just as you shall not draw your gun and shoot me now, though you should. Horus has bartered your strength for doubt and false promises. But our strength is still ours, and our iron is still true.
You shall be an outcast, called Argonis at Perturabo. He will hunt you. Once the War Master has taken the throne, he will hunt you. Perturabo paused. For a moment, Foryx thought he saw something shift in the shadow of his master, as though it was not cast by the thin light of hollow screens, but by the light of fires falling through the heaped blades and guns of the broken enemies. In the back of his mind he heard the chuckle of bullets, rattling into boxes and the hiss of sharpening swords. The echo of pride faded from his thoughts. We are damned, he heard his own thoughts say. Damned no matter what choice is made here, or how far we run from this folly. Damned in a universe with only false gods and no salvation.
So be it,
said the Lord of Iron. From the Sol System, Perturabo and the Iron Warriors watched. Time had broken. The warp and reality had clashed and broken each other. The Lord of Iron sat within his data sphere, waiting to see who was victorious. Whoever won, his father or Horus, both would hunt them. At times, Perturabo breaks things, when the fits of bitterness and rage become too much. Furniture, data looms, trophies. His Warhammer leaves dents in the chamber's bulkheads, and so do his fists. His hatred for his father and for Horus is now equal. Both had used him. Both had given him false appreciation. Both were liars. Both only saw the weapon they were ready to discard when their vision was achieved. So be it. Perturabo was a weapon, a perfect one. As perfect as a mortal organism can be, at least. But there was always room for improvement. He imagines himself as a perfect weapon. A more perfect weapon. Something pure. Something that is only a weapon and nothing else. An embodiment of absolute obliteration. For a weapon was no longer a man. And it was only men who could know love and betrayal. Perturabo sat once again in his throne. A dying Primarch. A Fulgrim-inflicted gift bleeding his essence until he was no longer iron within, iron without. Hatred. A cold core of hatred and bitterness was all that remained, as Perturabo awaited the victor of the Horus heresy. The warp and terror began to separate. The armada of Guilliman sailed past the hiding Fourth Legion, as the death of Horus rung like a bell across reality. From the crumbled ruins of the Imperial Palace, the traitors had begun to flee, their warp allies gone, as the Loyalists began their scouring. The roaring ocean of the Immaterium had become a tranquil lake, the death of their champion sending the Pantheon fleeing into its depths with their wounds. From the clouds of Neptune's moon, the 4th Legion roared forward, to the massive word-bearers upon it. Artillery guns boomed into ritual sacrifices, as the Lord of Iron sent tumbling the sons of Lorgar, standing over the torturer's table above his own son. Perturabo spoke his new philosophy, one that would guide this era to come.
Your word-bearer was right, though impatient. The gifts will return. We do not need to hurry them on. It would be dangerous to try. When they do, I have resolved to see what can be done with them. I have resolved to see how we can use them to better ourselves. Not as the slaves of the word do, but as we have always been. Engineers, makers. We tame things. We break them and bring them under the operations of our will. These gifts shall be no different. The intrusions of the warp will return, and we will break them too. We will forge them into weapons the like of which even my father never imagined. We bound the demons into our machines. We joined them with our bodies, and that made us stronger. But that is not enough. I see a path now. A path to greatness. No man's slave. No god's puppet. It will require time. It will require sacrifice. Lorgar's madness must be snuffed out, for the war cannot be rekindled for now. Let them rebuild. Let them catch their breath. We will do the same. And learn the things our brothers eagerly learned, while we hauled their guns for them and fought their wars.
Control or controlled. The power of chaos was a weapon, and from its depths one could call forth the power through suffering. Was there a path to become no slave, no lesser creature without iron? Was there a path to its mastery? Horus had proven his weakness. By his end he was no more than a vessel. But perhaps the truth lay with another, with his father. The Emperor had stolen the secrets of the warp, emerging from the gate of Moloch millennia before, with the power to create demigod sons, and a psychic strength unrivaled. But his failure was that he emerged with his humanity still within. A humanity that left him a rotting carcass and a golden throne. Shed the weakness, Perturabo told himself. Shed the man who whimpered with his sister's corpse in his grip. Shed the man who sought a father's approval. Shed the man who sought a brother's redemption and permission. Shed the man and become the weapon. A weapon of his own choosing, his own mastery. Take the warp within, but leave its chains. As the great scouring began, with cold detachment, the Fourth began to purge elements of the traitors seeking to reignite their god's power. To the world of Sebastus IV, in an internal fortress bastion, the target of his temptation finally arrived. The Praetorian and his Imperial fists began their assault, ready to dig out their arch rivals, ready for revenge for the siege of Terra, only for the trap to be sprung. Perturabo had seen the hate mirrored in his brother's eyes upon the Lion's Gate, and it was that hatred which he utilized to lure the fools of the Imperium into a massacre. Perturabo had his grueling siege, filled with all the venom and hatred blossomed over the Horus heresy. The Iron Cage massacre would fuel the suffering needed for a son of dead Olympia to ascend into the perfect weapon, as Perturabo elevated into pure iron, a demon of the warp. From the demon world of Medrungard, a world of bubbling magma, with citadels and foundries that littered far beyond any horizon, an iron warrior strode through the halls of his largest fortress.
For 10,000 years in the material verse, the Imperium of Man had rotted into a grimdark future of only war. A broken empire watched over by a carrion lord, worshipped by trillions who sat dying on the golden throne of Earth. Honshu moved his piece upon the board. This would make the 4th game he had lost to the creature that he sat opposite to. He saw a towering titan, consumed in infernal machinery, puffing scalding steam and black smoke. Tendrils of mechadendrites and half-seen mechanisms of black cogs ticked. It was rumoured to Honshu that the ominous ticks were the manifestation of Perturabo's own obsessive analysis of every failure, insult, and disappointment he had suffered in his long existence. Perturabo commended his Gene Son's efforts. His knowledge of grinding warfare was commendable, but he wanted more. He wanted to see his son push his iron to the extreme, to use everything within his strength, knowledge and will for victory until he was too at the point of breaking, or forged into something stronger. The next iteration played out. His heart pounding and drowning in sweat from mental exertion, Honshu finally lay the winning gambit. In victory he saw the truth. The pieces with the eye of terror around the bastion of Cadia. He looked from the viewport to the iteration manifest, overlooking the desolate outlands of Medrungard, and saw a world of fire with industry, a global effort of industrial output. Vast foundries churned out legions of battle tanks. Choking fumes spewed from chemical plants producing weapons and ammunition. His gaze travelled beyond the horizon to see every fibre of Medrungard's war machine, brought to bear to produce an army of conquest. "What is this?" Honshu asked. "Exactly what you came here looking for," said Perturabo. "A war like any other. The despoiler has called, and this time I will answer him. But to win, we need to cast off the old ways of war. None of my other warsmiths can think like you. They are all too bound up in whether a fight can be won, to understand that sometimes a fight needs to be fought. You have no code, no loyalty to any creed but your own. And the coming war will demand leaders who will fight even when logical things say they shouldn't. Warriors who will confound our enemies at every turn." Honshu watched the vast army forming up beneath the black sun in the dead sky. "That I can do," he said. An infinite citadel, a grinding, bloody conquest towards terror and the rotting corpse that sits upon its golden throne, all masterminded by no man, but a weapon, a being of the warp, a creature that had once been a son of Olympia, a lord of iron to an emperor, and now his name is a battle cry of desolation. Perturabo. Was he a son who dreamt of peace, but was used? Was he a tyrant too stubborn to leave the path of damnation? Was he a Primarch victim to a power he thought to tame? Was he a self-sacrificing fool, too proud to seek the attention he craved? Was Perturabo's demonhood justified? What do you believe?
From iron cometh strength. From strength cometh will. From will cometh faith. From faith cometh honour. From honour cometh iron.